Melanie,
Andrew,
how are you?
I'm good. Now that we've got the animals sorted.
Now that we have the animals sorted, just hang on, I'll just move that microphone so it's a little bit closer.
Mm-hmm. I'll let you do that.
Just to there.
And I'll try and stay put. I'll try not to wriggle around.
Welcome. Now, you are wanting to come on board to talk about International Guide Dogs Day, which is on Wednesday.
Mm-hmm.
However, what I understand from you is that you've spent 30 years in the veterinary and animal kind of advocacy industry, haven't you?
You've done your research. I'm very impressed.
As well as being a vet nurse for 20 years. How?
Well, how? I guess, Andrew, for your listeners, we're talking about International Guide Dog Day. So, yes, I am blind.
Yeah.
And I'm also deaf too. I just threw that bombshell at you just before as well.
You
So
literally did.
I have a dual disability. But, yes, so, yes, that was the whole reason I reached out to you on this fabulous podcast, because I thought, let's unbutton some guide dog myths around International Guide Dog Day.
Yeah.
But, I'm really chuffed that you did research me because, I've had a life. And
you certainly have, to the point where you've also been keynote speakers.
Oh, not quite.
Not quite at Melbourne Uni for graduating vet students.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I am trying to establish myself as a public speaker, and that kind of comes into some things that have happened in my life, and I feel like I have lived a life. I'm in my 50s, so I feel I can legitimately say that.
Hang on a minute. You're only just starting.
In my 50s?
Yeah.
Yeah?
You're only just starting that next chapter.
Yeah. Great that you said that. I love that, because a little bit lost there for a little while. As you mentioned, I was in a career for a long, long time. Since I was a baby, I was only 17 when I started as a junior veterinary nurse at a very large animal welfare shelter in Melbourne.
Yeah.
And I should explain, my vision loss is progressive.
Right.
So it was diagnosed in my late teens, early 20s.
Right.
And it's steadily been getting worse over time. So the main characteristics, the condition called retinitis pigmentosa, RP for short. Yeah. And the main characteristics are night blindness and an increasing lack of peripheral vision, so tunnel vision, in other words. But it just gradually gets worse and worse and worse over time. And when we get into the later stages of this disease, our central vision becomes impacted as well, which mine has started to do in the last few years. So, but the hearing loss, on the other hand, was diagnosed when I was 5. And it's relatively stable and is fairly well corrected with 2 hearing aids. However, the two conditions actually go together to create this one condition with the lovely name of Usher syndrome. Right. Which I hate that name, but anyway. That's kind of how I got into veterinary nursing in the first place, because I could see. Yeah. And vet nursing is a very visual job. It's a very physical job. Yeah. I grew up on a farm in the Western District of Victoria. Yeah. So animals have just
always been a part of your life.
Totally.
And you grew up with them, so it seemed like a natural progression to be in the veterinary kind of industry, right?
It was, Andrew, but living in regional Victoria I was born in the 70s, so I knew that I had to come to the city to get work. I didn't want to be a vet. I knew right up from the start I didn't want to be a vet. I wanted to be a vet nurse because I wanted to be hands-on. I wanted to be the primary carer.
Tactile.
Yeah, definitely more tactile. Isn't that interesting? Because all these years later, that was before my blindness diagnosis. You're spot on. That's a really good word.
It is interesting in the fact that, obviously, when you look at human existence, like we all started with it all started with like being tactile, right? Like caveman days and like, working out, sticks and stones and fire and all that type of stuff, right? And then as civilization kind of progressed, we kind of had paper and typewriters and all of this, and now in the digital age,
nanos and mattos and whatever they are.
Yeah, it's kind of changing, right?
Yeah.
But in actual fact, the CEOs of all these tech companies, they send their they send their kids to schools that don't have any technology, so that they can learn the old way, pen and paper.
I wasn't aware of that.
And handwriting.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
I'm so pleased to hear that's happening.
But isn't that so funny though? Like they're implementing a technology that is spread across all these different schools in all these different countries, yet their own kids get taught how to handwrite.
So good. It is. I'm so pleased to hear that, and reading actual books, touching a book, turning a page, that sort of stuff. Because I was really worried we're going to lose that.
Yeah.
And even the trades as well. I mean, my husband, you just met him before. He's a cabinet maker.
Yeah.
And he's right on that cusp of, he learnt old school, like he drew all these drawings.
Yeah.
Whereas now they do them all now with CNC and that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So he understands that and he's seen it all and he can do it, but he's got the old school. He's lucky. He's got the blend of both.
Yeah.
But it's interesting times, isn't it?
Yeah. You mentioned that you were born in the 70s. I was born in the 70s as well.
Were you?
Shit! Giving away my age.
Finally.
79. So
that's
like real late 79. But still, I'm in that generation where we, I guess, kind of like grew up with analog, and then we saw digital come about, and it's this overlap. Like I was part of that that generation, and it's interesting seeing everything kind of like coming out now, because it's, you can see little glimpses of nostalgic stuff. And then someone comes out with something that's real nostalgic, and you're like, oh my God, like, So you took up vet nursing and you realised that you needed to move into the big smoke.
Yeah, because I knew, so I did pretty well at school, but I didn't, like I said, I knew right from the outset that I didn't want to be a vet, so I didn't go for the full vet, and I knew I didn't want to go to uni.
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting? I had this, I don't know what it is, I didn't know anyone who went to uni, but the idea of uni just made me, I can't do it. I just can't do it. And I think it comes from being such a practical, hands-on, tactical person that, and knowing that I wanted to be in there, getting dirty, hands on these animals. So I knew that nursing was going to be, and I knew that I could do that. So the study part of it didn't really worry me, because I knew I still had to study, and back then it was a TAFE course, and it was like an apprenticeship. You went to TAFE 1 day a week whilst you were working. That was like the rules, that was the criteria, and that was 2 years. And so I did, now you would remember this, old school, I got out the telephone book in year 12, year 12. Okay, I want to be a vet nurse. I know I've got to go to Melbourne. I didn't have a clue of Melbourne's geography. Didn't know anything. And I just hand wrote all these letters to all these vets in Melbourne and sent them off. And I got a call on the morning of my... No. It was before. You know when you have it used to be called SWAT back. Like it was a SWAT week that you had before your exams. Yeah. And I got a call in the middle of that study week to say, from this animal welfare organisation, to say, we've seen your resume, we've got some openings for some, they didn't call it entry level back then, but it was junior vet nurses basically. yeah, we like you, we want to meet you. And I'm like, oh, okay, yep, no worries. And I'm like, I really want to, I have to study. It's a 3 hour one way, 3 hours one way, 3 hours back drive from where I was living to Melbourne. And, don't I? And Mum was like, yeah, we can do it, And I'm like, oh, okay. So we jump in the car and go down for the interview, and my first ever interview. And I'm like, oh, God, I think that went really badly. But anyway, that's fine. Went back, studied, just about to go to walk out of the house on the Monday morning for the first exam, which was the English exam.
Yeah.
Phone call came through from that organisation saying, oh, look, we really want you, we'll start you on for a 3-month trial, and then, at least that way you've got some experience, and then you can go on and do whatever. And I've gone, oh, sweet as.
Yeah.
I've walked into all my exams going, I've got a job. And for a 17-year-old, a 3-month thing, you don't even stop to think about the consequences following that. But
exactly.
31 and a half years later, I was still at that same organisation.
Wow.
So, yeah, it was an incredible journey, incredible experience, and I'm really grateful for that time. Yeah, I started off as a junior vet nurse. I could still drive then. I was still playing netball. I'd drive home on the weekend to see Mum and Dad. But then as my vision started to deteriorate, it was like, oh, okay, stop driving at night at first, and then I realised I couldn't drive. So I stopped myself voluntarily from driving. But, yeah, I just went on this incredible journey with this organisation, and it was really grassroots animal welfare back in that day. And I feel incredibly lucky to have seen how animal welfare has transcended from when I first started. We were putting down a lot of animals just simply because no one wanted them. There's no room for them. They had a behavioural issue. Off it went, whereas now and over time, seeing that industry change and more money go into behavioural modification and really assessing the owners of these animals and compulsory desexing, microchipping, all that sort of stuff. So I feel incredibly blessed to have been a part of all of that.
So you're saying that it's a good thing that all of this additional stuff is taking place?
Very brave of you to bring that up, actually.
Yeah, or are you against it?
I'm not against it. I'm totally not against it. I think it's a sign of society and where we're moving as a society, and society demands that we do more for these animals. But there's still the country girl component of me, the reality side of it, that, some of these animals that, are they really better off still in this world?
Oh, it's such a hard thing, isn't it?
It is. Because, really, we can behavioural modify, we can medicate, we can do this and we can do that, but is that really the right thing for these animals? But anyway, I don't want to go there in this conversation, because the type of animals that I really want to touch on today are, of course, guide dogs and International Guide Dog Day, because they are a totally different thing. But how I even ended up, with a guide dog that's kind of interesting in itself as well.
Yeah. So your vision kind of started. Did you say it started deteriorating in your 20s?
My early 20s.
So early 20s, right.
Yeah. So, and it was like, so your peripheral vision, your night blind. So night blindness is like, you can't see in the dark. Most people can't see in the dark, can they? You can't see in the dark, But without realising that I really can't see in the dark.
When there's no lights on, I can't see anything.
Whereas other people can. It took a while for that to drop. So I think it was more the lack of peripheral vision, which was more significant, particularly in a busy role as a veterinary nurse, where particularly when you're working in surgery, you're running from surgery prep to surgery, cleaning instruments, you're darting all around the place, and you're sweeping floors, you're cleaning instruments, you're cleaning cages. You need your peripheral vision.
Yeah.
So
it's kind of critical.
It is, absolutely.
The whole driving at night thing, you can live without that, but like during the day, doing your job, that would have been so hard for you to work through
Oh.
and make the decision.
It was, and if I hadn't have had an incredible support in who is still one of my very dearest friends these days, a nurse who was a little bit older than me, only a couple of years, but she was pretty much my manager, and she could see the frustration and what was happening. She could see it more than I could, and she very gently started to steer me into other roles within the organisation where I wasn't feeling that frustration. So administration, so I got into doing the drug ordering and talking to people. I got more into the adoption side of things where I'm talking to these new people that are adopting these animals and discovered that, gee, I like to talk. I'm a talker. So she had identified that skill set in me that I didn't realise I had and allowed me to, so that I guess she softened the blow a little bit in being, but I was still there. I was still able to, hands-on with these animals.
Yeah, I think that's so good. Like you had someone that was, like your manager that kind of could still see this like drive and purpose in you, but also identify the fact that there was something going on,
and she knew,
she wanted to make sure that you were still active in the industry.
That's
in
right.
that organisation, right?
Yeah. So that was a real journey. Then gradually, as I became more accepting of it, and she moved on, and I was in a much better space to go, okay, I can't do this, but I can do this. And and I continue to have a great career there. And I guess evolving as I aged as well into more, I was the operations manager for the National Pet Register, so that was all about pet identification, and also did a lot of PR kind of stuff out there at pet expos and stuff like that, talking about identification. And again, really developing that craft of connecting and talking to people. Guide dog's just spotted one of the cats.
The little one's he just like came down the stairs. I could see him, and he was looking, and then he just like crept a little bit more forward. And
she actually she likes cats. We have a cat. We live with a cat. But she grew up in her puppy raiser family with a big Bengal cat called Rocky, and Rocky made sure Dessi learnt respect for cats. So I don't know if that barked very respectful, but anyway.
It was a bark just to say, I'm here and I can see you. And don't worry, the cat just like scurried off.
Yeah.
So talk me through though, like, you had this frustration in not being able to do the things that you were doing, but like, how did you like work through all of those emotions and all of those kind of like self-doubt things? And
'cause I didn't for a long time. I really didn't. And
pushed it under the carpet.
Yeah, and I was busy. I was doing stuff. I was still successful in the things I was doing.
Yeah.
They were hard, and I was struggling. I would be struggling after an event to send through a report to our marketing team, and I'm just over the computer like, oh my God, like into the late hours, not claiming any of that time.
Yeah.
But still this overwhelming need to prove that I could do this stuff,
Yeah.
I had no idea the effect it was having on me and what I was doing at the time. And I'm going to throw another spanner in the works. I'm the eldest of three, and I have a brother who's 2 years younger than me and a sister who's 5 years younger, and all three of us have the same condition.
Right.
It's nowhere in our family. It's a recessive gene.
Right.
So mum and dad don't have it, but they both obviously carry the recessive gene. And when you look on your gene, go back to year 12 biology, with your recessive gene, it's theoretically a 1 in 4 chance of the offspring having the 2 recessive to create a condition. So to have 3 out of 3 have this condition is pretty unusual. But
it's so hard.
But we're really close. and we're a really close family. I'm the only one that came to Melbourne. The other two stayed in the country, but I'm the eldest. And I think because it's a progressive condition, I very much felt that whole, I'm forging the way for my brother and my sister.
Yeah.
I have to do this. I have to be strong. I have to show them that it's okay. Everything's good. And but eventually it all came to a big screeching halt. When a lot of other things happening in my life at the time, and vision went through a really significant decline.
Yeah.
And I hit rock bottom, and that was tough. With lots of other things that were going on in my life as well. And for the first time, it's like, why am I feeling this way? And in hindsight, I was possibly also perimenopausal. So, but I'm like, why am I feeling this way now? I've been dealing with this all my life, and all of a sudden I can't cope. I can't deal with this. But as someone said to me, you put the brakes on. You didn't smash into the wall. So I did.
What does that mean?
It means I applied the brakes. I realised where I was heading.
So you stopped.
I stopped. I didn't smash into the wall.
Right.
Yeah. And I was able to go, whoa, stop. Okay, this isn't right. This is tough.
I'm really fascinated in the fact that you had your vision. Like it's not that you weren't born with it. So you knew, like you had your vision and you knew what it was like to have your vision, and then to have it slowly decline and be taken away from you. Like that is...
And not to know, Andrew, so the diagnosis back then was like, we can't tell you if you're going to go completely blind or whether it's just going to get to a certain point, like your hearing loss.
That is such a mind fuck.
Yeah, totally. Totally.
What the fucking hell, mate?
Absolutely. And then, of course, I had my brother and sister. And that in itself is really interesting too, because my brother's only 2 years younger than me, but his vision loss seemed to be on a totally different trajectory.
Yeah.
He seems to be retaining a little bit more.
Right.
My sister, 5 years younger, is almost identical in her trajectory as to where her vision loss is heading.
Right.
So, so eventually it was like, okay, it's got to this point. Is this it? Is it going to stop? And then I could go for a year and nothing would change. I could go for a day and it would just go pa-ching, pa-ching. And even now it still fades in and out of my central vision. So it is, as you said, it is. It's a total, it screws with you. But yeah.
Do you think putting the brakes on helped you deal with things like emotionally and physiologically
100%.
to then be able to like kick off other things?
Yeah,
like
100%. 100%.
There's that saying, you need to slow down to go faster.
Yeah.
As opposed to just keep going.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. So I went through that whole and really accepting that, okay, this is where it's at. And so the whole guide dog mobility journey as well. So she's my first guide dog. So I was using a white cane for many years.
Right.
So vision loss, okay, you've got to stop driving, okay, you're tripping over things around your feet, you really need to deal with that, Melanie.
Yeah.
So I learned to use a cane, and so that was the whole thing as well. And I think it was a trip overseas that I took with my husband in 2011 when I was just like, I was with him, so I technically didn't really need the cane because he was my sighted guide, as we call it in our industry.
Yeah.
And I mean, he's been on this journey with me for the whole time as well. When I first met him.
Yeah. And when did you meet him?
I met him in 95, so that was just before. I was just like, when I first met him, I threw everything at him and said, hey, I'm deaf, I'm going blind, all this sort of stuff, and he's still here, like 30 years later.
He stuck around.
He stuck around.
He's like, she's a keeper.
But he's been on this journey too. And so when we were overseas, and it was like a real struggle going to all these airports and stuff, and he's like, Melanie, get your cane out. Let's just see what happens. And I'm like, oh, okay, if you want me to. And it was like the parting of the Red Sea, you know. It was just that indication to others that, oh, yes, okay, they need a bit of help here. And he was like, oh, why haven't we been doing this before? So I think that was having him accept it as it allowed me to go, oh, yeah, it's not so bad. And then, you know, once and that it all kind of happened in retrospect all around the same time. So, it was just natural evolution of things that were going on. And, so that was sort of how that all went.
Yeah, right. So, okay, so Desi's been your first guide dog.
Yeah.
What are some of the myths?
Oh, well, let me just say at first, people are quite often amazed as to why it took me so long to get a guide dog.
Why did you take it so long?
Well, yeah, this is interesting. And people would say to me, Melanie, you're a vet nurse. You grew up on a farm. You've been around working dogs. Why not a guide dog? There were so many things, Andrew, so many things that I had to process in my own mind first. And one of the biggest things, and it still is a pain point for me, losing them. They're not with you long enough. And I just knew that I would be establishing an incredible bond with my very first guide dog.
Yeah.
My first dog, especially. But people were like, Melanie, why is this a problem for you? You've worked in animal welfare. You've grown up on a farm.
Yeah.
Surely you understand that. And I said, yeah, I understand it, but I don't like it.
Yeah.
You know, so that was a really big hurdle for me. But, you know, and I it still is, but I push it aside. But, you know, there was a whole raft of things. Yeah.
I guess it's this difference between, and I don't mean this in any way, but it's this difference between, like, the guide dog has a profession as opposed to a personal connection, you know, with you, but then for you, it's all personal, you know, like.
And most guide dog handlers will tell you that you can't avoid the personal. The personal comes into it as well. Yeah, and you very much become a team.
I think that happens in every role that has some sort of animal or dog, right?
Definitely.
Like customs officers or like police dogs, you know, like they're gonna build a bond with the handler.
Yeah, and in our situation, it becomes another step because it's our safety as well. It's very much our safety, and the fact that we have to have that trust. That, I mean, you know, police dogs, you know, similar as well, and but they're usually focused on the chase, not so much on their handler.
Correct.
Whereas these dogs are very focused on their person and what they do, and it goes very, very deep, and I mean. And for me too, I one of the things that I was processing was that it's a huge responsibility. And I mean, I'm a bit of an overthinker, and I'm not saying that all guide dog handlers go down this thought process. It's probably just me. But I took it on as a huge responsibility because I was acutely aware that every time my dog and I stepped out, we were representing the organisation that she came from. And I was like, am I up for that responsibility? I knew she was.
Right.
But am I up for it?
Right.
Because I take that really seriously. I take what goes into these dogs. I have so much respect and gratitude for what goes into creating these dogs and for what creates us as a team.
I never thought of that, actually, like how that is such a big responsibility. Like,
I believe it is.
The relationship that you have with your dog is now a reflection of that organisation.
100%. I work for them now. But
how does that feel working?
I love it. Oh, incredible! It's but I mean, how I even came to be working for Guide Dogs Victoria is just another story in itself as well. I mean, it's just it's I don't know. I tend to go off on these tangents, but it's really interesting.
How did you come to working for them?
So let's go back. So I got her in 2019, November 2019.
Yeah.
And she was 20 months old.
Yeah.
And I was 48. And that incredible moment. I'm emotional now. Just casting back to that time. But so that was, 2018, 2018. So we had a whole year. 2019 was a great year, still working at the Animal Welfare Organisation. Things were changing. The structure of the organisation was changing, which a lot of not-for-profits are all going through the same thing to be sustainable. So we weren't that grassroots organisation anymore. So I was aware that, there were some changes, but that's okay. And ironically, I had a new manager come in when I first got the call that I'd been matched with her and I had to go into 4 weeks of training. And I had a new manager start. I'm like, oh, God, I've got a new manager. I've got to ask for 4 weeks off so I can train with this guide dog. How's it going to go? New manager had come from Guide Dogs Queensland. So she was like, no worries, Melanie. I can get you. Yes, that's fine. Let me just sign it all off. You've got all this sick leave accrued. Let's use that. And I'm like, really? And she's like, hell yeah. So it was amazing having her at that time. So, went off, did my training, came back to work, had a fantastic year, 2019. Things were changing. That manager didn't last very long, and it was a really unsettling time. And then started 2020, March 2020, and I saw myself looking at redundancy papers. And it wasn't COVID related.
COVID?
No.
It wasn't COVID related.
It wasn't. It was structural, organisational structural. So that was a real curveball. And it was like, So for the first time in my working life, I was faced with potentially having to look for work as a person with a disability.
Yeah.
I'd never had to do that. I'd been in this employment bubble for 31 years.
Yeah.
And it was like, holy shit, what am I going to do now? But COVID was a godsend for me because not much was happening. It was a good payout. My husband and I don't have kids. We've got a tiny mortgage.
Yeah.
He's a cabinet maker. He was still classed essentially as an essential worker, had his own business. So we were okay. And it gave me time and space to just go, where to from here?
Reflection time.
Exactly.
Right?
And you nailed it earlier when you said, I'm just beginning. And it turned out it didn't feel like that at the time. And thank God I had her. And thank God she was a young, I'm not religious, but I just said that, whatever, that she was a young dog and she still needed to work. She needed and wanted to work. She's a great worker. She loves working. She gets such a sense of pride when she does something.
Yeah.
And like I said earlier, I have so much respect and gratitude for what's gone into this dog.
Yeah.
I had a 5-kilometre walking bubble to explore. I hadn't had time. I'd been working almost full time.
Yeah.
I hadn't had a chance to explore the neighbourhood with her.
Yeah.
So, every day I was able to get up and I was able to do that. Yeah, I wasn't working, didn't have any money coming in, but that's okay. Nothing else was happening around and it was just that time. And it was really interesting because my whole life I have been this practical, logical person and I just do things practically. I'm a vet nurse, you do things practically. Creativity, what's that? Didn't have a clue.
Yeah.
And I thought, I've got a bit of time here. What's some things? And so Vision Australia were doing all these online, trying to keep their clients connected and things like that. So they were doing these online social groups and things and courses. They weren't really courses, but they were more like trying to keep people connected during this time.
There were a lot of online bullshit things that were happening.
Totally. And I was just like, I'm just that little bit older than you and I'm not a first one to say tech is not my thing, but it was like, this is kind of curious. Like creative writing, what's that all about? I've always kind of been interested in writing. Let's sign up to that. Yeah. That was okay.
Yeah.
The other thing I signed up for was this weird little thing called audio journalism. And I'm like, what the hell is audio journalism? I'm embarrassed to admit that I didn't even know what a podcast was really.
I mean,
in 2020. And
2020,
I know.
It wasn't really a thing.
It was, but
yeah.
I was aware of it, but I had no idea how to actually access or listen to one.
Yeah.
And what was involved in making one.
Yeah.
And that it is actually audio journalism very much forms a part of that. And I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. And so I signed up, and the guy that was facilitating it he worked for Vision Australia, but he also worked in community radio. And so it was like, there's only 4 of us in the group. We're from all over Australia, one in Tassie, one in, I think, South Australia, and me in Victoria, and one in New South Wales, and one in Queensland, I think. So, yeah, we'd connect every fortnight or so, and we'd listen to a podcast, then we'd talk about it, and then we'd deconstruct it, and it was fascinating.
Yeah.
I'm like, wow, this is really interesting. And we started sort of playing around with stuff, and I had a fantastic support worker, a lot younger than me, and I'm saying, I'm doing this course, this is really cool. And she's gone, oh, yeah, I used Audacity in high school. I'm going, what's Audacity? And it's like an audio editing program. Oh, really? Okay, let's just have a bit of a play around, start taking some recordings. And because, as you would know, audio editing is quite visual.
Yeah.
You need to be able to see your waves and up and your downs and whatever.
Yep.
And she was like, oh, I reckon we can do this. And this spawned this whole new... I'm a storyteller. And I didn't realise that fully until this time. And then I started to learn the craft of storytelling and putting things together. And I discovered that I always knew I liked to talk, but I can also ramble on a bit. So the idea of having structure was really appealing to me, because I'd come from this, very practical background. So the idea of learning to craft something into a structure and create something out of it was really fascinating. So we played around and we put together this little thing. Now, I don't know how many people were aware of this phenomenon that came up in COVID called Spoonville.
Spoonville.
Yeah, and what it was kids were painting spoons, like putting little faces and stuff on, and they were sticking them in gardens.
Yeah. I remember that.
Yeah. So that was this thing. I think it started in the UK, and then
there
people...
was an article or something about...
around here too, in Cheltenham.
Yeah.
Cheltenham SES actually went, because one Spoonville got trashed, and the SES went and restored it, and it was just really cool stuff. And I thought, this is really cool. So we kind of played around with that, and I tracked down that guy from the SES, and I interviewed him, and I interviewed, just all these different people about what they thought about Spoonville, and threw it all together with some music. And I kind of started it really suspenseful at the start. Anyway, I played it in this class, so to speak, and it was dead silent. And then the facilitator goes, Melanie, can we talk offline? Sure. And he goes, I think you need to sign up for some training. I'm like, really?
What?
He goes, yeah. He said, what was it? It was the CMTO, Community Media Training Organisation.
Right.
And the CBAA, Community Broadcasting Association of Australia.
Yeah.
So those two combined had a program, and Max had been a participant in this program a couple of years before, so he knew about it. And it was for emerging content creators. What it did was it actually matched you with an experienced mentor who would then be your executive producer, and then together you would create content. And it was all a part of what they call the National Features and Documentary Series.
Yeah.
And it ran for 7 years, and you had to. They did one every year, and it was there was a whole criteria. You had to apply, and you had to be basically inexperienced, and your thing that you wanted to do your podcast on had to be related to community in some way. So I put together an application, and I got accepted into it. And I think it was about 250 applicants, and I got it down to, I think, 10 participants. And I'm like, cool, okay, what do we do? Said to my support worker, gonna need some eyes on this. Are you up for this with me? She's like, sure. And I was mentored. My mentor was this lovely woman, Katerina, a German lady from Brisbane, who had also been a participant in the program and a couple of years before. And, you basically had to create... in our case, it was a 12-minute piece, and they packaged up all of our pieces together, and it was the 2021, I think it was, National Features and Documentary Series.
Gotcha.
And then they packaged the series up to community radio and said, look, here's 10 episodes, the latest National Features and Documentary Series, play them if you want, whatever. And they were all different topics. So I had one in my class who did palliative care. She was a palliative care nurse. So she focused on, end of life. Another girl did hers on wrestling, the community of wrestling. Someone else did one on COVID, of course. There was only one person who did the whole COVID thing. And my topic was rideability. Was what we called it. It was about riding for the disabled, which I love horses, grown up on a farm, and I'd actually been a participant in the RDO program down here in Moorabbin a few years ago. So we put that together, and it was so much fun, and we learned a lot, and I actually won at the end of the year. They have they announce a winner out of that group at the CBAA Awards, and we won it for that year, which was quite amazing. And then it got shortlisted on the New York Radio Awards 2022.
Wow!
So it was all quite bizarre that that's how it all came out, but. This creative side of me, and I've heard you do interviews with other people, and one of your questions is you ask your people, have you always been creative?
Yeah.
No, I have never been creative.
Yeah.
And this side of me just blew everybody out of the water. It was like, who are you and where did Melanie go?
and that's what I mean when I said before, you've just started.
It seems like I really do feel like I have, because the other thing, and you touched on it earlier, the other thing that I embraced during that time of reflection was public speaking. And I was at that stage in my life where I'm thinking, you know what, I'm going to have to start looking at doing something work-wise where I need to rely on my brain and my voice, not on my vision, which is not going to be there much longer.
I actually think you're at an advantage to everybody else, because when I think of myself and all of the, I guess, struggles that I've gone through in terms of public speaking, I still get nervous.
Oh, you should. You should get nervous.
And I don't know if it's nervous or excited. And I know that it's the same biological, physiological, processes in your body that cause those same types of emotions. So I have to constantly remind myself, no, this is just me getting excited. It's not me getting nervous because I know my content, and I think back to when I first started, the things that you would do is you would scan the room and look at everybody, and then you would identify the people that either you idolized or you really respected, and then that made you even more nervous because it's like, holy shit, what am I going to look like in front of them?
Yeah.
And that's where I'm saying you're at an advantage because you can't see them.
I can't see them if they're snoring or falling asleep or whatever.
but also, another reason why I say that you've just started is because too often I've come across people who, think that they're stuck or they're done. They can't evolve. They can't change and adapt. I think I've always been the type of person to adapt and to push myself and to learn something new and change who you are or learn a new skill and just constantly be aware about what's going on in your environment and who you're communicating with or, stuff like that.
And you've always been aware of that, have you, Andrew?
I've always, since my earliest memory as a child, as a kid, I've always really wanted to understand stuff. And then having had the childhood that I had, we moved around quite a bit. So I grew up in Southeast Asia. I was born in Singapore. We lived in Brunei. lived in Indonesia and then lived in Singapore. So I never had one set group of friends.
Mm-hmm.
It was always saying goodbye to existing friends because expat families would leave, or like saying hello to new people, you know, and it'd just be this constant thing, right? And then when we would go to Indonesia to see my mum's family, we were, I guess, pedestaled. We were idolized because we were like mixed race children, and everybody was like, "Oh, look at them! You know, that's who we want to be like." And all, like, they didn't say that, but you could feel that that's what they were looking, you know. And then, and also, like, I was 6 foot at age 12.
Yeah.
So I stuck out like anything. And then when we'd go to Perth, because my dad was from Perth, you know, we kind of stick out there as well. So it was just kind of like, we didn't really like fit in anywhere. But what I, like, looking back, it wasn't a great experience for me, but now I'm quite thankful for it because it's given me the skills and given me the characteristics to appreciate everything.
Absolutely.
And like, everybody has a story to tell.
They do.
Regardless of what they've gone through.
Yep.
And no one should be judged on anything.
Yeah.
It's just what has happened in their life or on their path.
100%.
You know.
Yeah.
And
you're very fortunate, I think, to have had all that and to have recognised and you know, accept that that's why you are who you are. Whereas I will honestly tell you that I never identified anything like that until just a few years ago.
Yeah,
and just going, okay, right, sort yourself out, kid. You know, you need to, you know, you won't be able to see. You need to look at something. You like to talk, you know, you've got a good brain, use it. So I embraced a public speaking coach, and I think you should have her on your show. You would love her. She is amazing. And yeah, through that process of going, yeah, I've got a story to tell, but let's learn how to do it properly.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm still class myself as an emerging speaker. My goal would be to do keynotes and get paid for it, that sort of stuff. But
I know, if she tried to coach me, I know the first thing that she would say.
I don't know.
You need to fucking stop swearing.
No, I bet you she would tell you not to do that. Not stop swearing.
Keep swearing.
Yeah, I bet you she would. Yep.
Oh my God, I need this woman on. I need this woman on.
Well, you'd be. Yeah, her business is called She Talks.
She Talks. Okay.
But she has been known to take on male clientele from time to time.
Okay, all right. Well, we'll I'll reach out
to
her.
Put the challenge out.
Yeah.
No, I feel incredibly blessed to have come across her and have her in my life, and it's opened up a lot of opportunities, and and then one of them being with that speaking and having a guide dog and being a client of guide dogs during that hiatus time, I was learning the craft of speaking, and the opportunities to speak as a client speaker for Guide Dog Victoria came up.
Yeah.
So that was where I sort of started to learn, and I still am. You're still learning. You're always learning. I think you should be as a speaker. Yeah. And I mean, I have a lot of potential things that I can talk about. So that's how guide dogs kind of got to know me a bit better. I had another friend that I used to work with at the animal welfare organisation who was working for guide dogs in their fundraising team.
Yeah.
And a role came up, and I'm like, I can't work in fundraising. That's just not me. I'm a vet nurse. How can I work in fundraising?
Yeah.
But she was so smart, this girl, because it's like it actually makes perfect sense, and I love the job to have someone in a fundraising role. I work in a planned giving team, so that's people who make a conscious effort to support guide dogs.
Yeah.
And how smart is that, having someone with lived experience in this role, because I am the beneficiary of their support.
Yeah.
You know, and it really comes from the heart. When I talk to these people, our supporters,
Yeah.
you know, it's very genuine. It's very authentic. It comes from me. I can't fake anything. I can't give anything away in my face. You've probably worked that out. I can't play poker because I give everything away. So
Fucking hell, Melanie, I thought you were going to say I can't play poker because I can't see the cards.
Well, that too.
Shit. You're going to get me cancelled or in trouble here. She's the one that said it, not me.
Oh dear. But yeah, so that's how that sort of came about.
I think you're so correct in, you know, having you as you know, an employee in that organization as a direct beneficiary of what you're trying to do, just almost kind of like creates this true story, this realistic, you know, scenario.
100%.
And I guess kind of cements the strategy and the purpose of what the organization's trying to do.
100%.
You know,
but it was a little bit. Initially, when I first started, you know, making calls to our supporters and introducing myself, and it was like, yeah, my name's Melanie, and yeah, it depends on how the conversation goes as to whether you share with them that you are blind. Some people don't want to hear about it, and some do. And I might say, yeah, I'm actually vision impaired myself, and I do have a guide dog, and they go, oh. The ones that are into, oh, what's your dog's name? And I would say, oh, yeah, her name is Desso. And I should explain there's a story behind her name. So, yes, her correct name is Desso. She's actually named after our former governor, Linda Desso, who was a patron for Guide Dogs Victoria. Apparently, when you are the governor of Victoria, you automatically assume patronage of Guide Dogs Victoria. That's just one of those things. So 2017 was the 60th anniversary year for Guide Dogs Victoria. They had this lovely celebration ceremony at Government House. Yeah. And completely unknown to the governor, Guide Dogs had organised to present her with an 8-week-old puppy named in her honour. Oh, wow. And it was like, here you go, Governor Desso. Here's Puppy Desso. Hopefully she'll grow up to be a guide dog. Oh. Ba-ching! Here she is.
Oh, shit.
So when I say to people, yeah, her name's Desso, and I hear silence, I go, you might, particularly long-term supporters, I say, yeah, you might actually know of her. She was presented to the puppy that went to the governor. And I said, well, she didn't go to the governor, but yes, she's named in the governor. And yes, she has. She's made it through. She's a working guide dog, and I have her.
That is amazing.
But I call her Dessi, and it's kind of like she has a racing name and a stable name.
Yeah.
So her racing name is Desso, and I'm very respectful of that. And when I do any promotional work for guide dogs, that's who she is. That's the story. But to me and to those closest to us, she's Dessi. And that's actually good because kind of gets into the whole myth things that we're hoping to, a few things. One really big thing is we should never, members of the public should never talk to or engage with a guide dog that's in working harness. And it's such a natural thing for people to do, to see a dog and go, oh, hello, what's your dog's name? And look at the dog and cute faces and stuff like that. That's just what we do as people. But we really should try to not do that with a working guide dog because it is actually distracting for the dog. So for me, and by distracting, that it can potentially put the dogs off their work and what they're meant to be doing. Yeah. But in this case, it's actually quite good for me because when people, the microphone again, see, blind person thing, told you I'd do that. People will say to me, you know, and again, comes back to that responsibility that I was telling you about. You know, I have to be aware. People love dogs. They're going to talk to me. They want to know about the dog. So it'll be, oh, what's your dog's name? And I go, oh, her name's Desso. And you hear people, well, you feel people go, oh, God, what did she say? What? And it's like,
are you serious?
Because and it's good.
People like that.
Yeah, but it's good because if I said, oh, yeah, her name's Daisy, they go, oh, hello, Daisy, how are you? But because they can't get their tongue around Desso, they abandon it, and it's like, oh, fantastic, you know, and they go on to. And so what we try to say to people is, talk to the handler, talk to the person.
Yeah.
Me, I'm here. You have a
Yeah.
dog's here. She's part of what I am, and I know you love her, but she can't talk to you. I can.
Yeah.
Hello,
yeah,
here I am.
Yeah. And I think that's interesting, right? The visual cue around having the harness on.
Oh, let's talk about that.
If the harness is on, don't engage, don't
Yes.
talk. She's working.
Yes, but
You know.
let's talk harnesses.
Mm.
Every Tom, Dick, and Harry has some sort of harness on their dog. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah.
So and I'm a little bit devil's advocate here. I hate it, but I acknowledge that for the general public, sometimes it might be hard to actually distinguish that a dog is a working dog because of the harness thing.
Mm.
I hate it. I absolutely hate it. And even in our community, there are blind dog handlers that have these groovy harnesses. They're all different colours and what have you, which is, I understand people want to be able to express their individuality, but it blurs the line for the public.
Yeah, and that's
You know what
so
I mean?
important, right?
It is important. I mean, even just with a white cane as well, like a white cane is so significant. People know it's white, it's got a red tip,
Yeah.
it's a blind person. But even now you'll start to see, particularly with our younger people, they're starting to customise their canes a lot more. They're going to bling them up, they'll make different colours, which is fine. I understand that, but it makes it harder for the public to go, oh, what's really going on here? And I think that's what we're seeing with our dogs now too, which is a real bummer. It's a real bummer because I think people want to do the right thing, but that's the rule, and the older generations are like, we know when a dog's in harness, you don't engage with it, but that actually does mean, most people go, oh, I can't pat it, but it does extend to don't engage with the dog, don't talk to it, don't look at it. Talk to the person. The person wants to talk to you. The dog can't talk to you.
Yeah.
But the harness distinction is a bit of a problem. I mean, I do know of some guide dog handlers that even have a sign on their harness saying, guide dog, please don't distract, which is kind of annoying that we have to do that. But that's the reality, I think. It's just,
Is it, okay, so is it annoying because you feel like you shouldn't have to do it? People should just know and respect because you mentioned just then, like the older generation just know.
Or they do know when they see a traditional harness.
Yeah. So what is it about this new generation that can't seem to work things out or can't seem to understand?
Andrew, I really don't know. And I don't know whether the education in the school system is not there as much as it used to be in the olden days, or I just think that there's so many diverse needs in the disability sector these days as well. I wonder whether that might have something to do with it too. It's not, disability is not as clear cut as it used to be, I don't believe.
I think it's definitely getting blurred, isn't it? Because I mean, if you're saying just then that the younger vision impaired people are blinging up their canes, why?
Well, they need to express their individuality.
I get it. I get it. I totally get it. But are you expressing your individuality at the expense of blurring the lines?
Respect for disability.
To not only yourself, but to other people. You spoke about the responsibility that you have to the organisation because you have a guide dog. What about the responsibility that other people have, to the other visual impaired people?
It's a really interesting space, and I think I love the fact that I am in my 50s and that I can speak like this. I can see both sides. I really, truly can.
Yeah, I can see both sides as well.
Yeah. But it's like, where do we go? And I think that's where we need to be a little bit patient with the public. I understand and respect that it can be difficult, and I have this funny little cop out, and often I use public transport. I use the train a lot, and people will kind of go for the sneaky pat, and I'll go, I'm sure they're thinking, oh, she's blind, she can't see. And, you know, but we know our dogs give it away. And because we're very sensitive to, like, you know, we've got the handle, we've got the lead. And in my case, I have a gentle leader on her as well, which means I can feel everything every time her face. If she moves a whisker, I can feel it. So it'll be like, oh, can you please not pat my dog? And they're like, oh. You can hear them go, how did she know? How did she see?
How did she know? Hello?
I'm not really blind. It's all an act.
Have these people not seen the movie Daredevil?
Probably not.
Well, that was the comic book that I collected when I was a kid, right? Because I was like, oh my God, like, and I was just like, I got into comic books, and that was the comic book that I was fascinated with. And the whole thing is, you take a sense away, that power or that, you know, kind of ability then moves itself to one of the other five senses, you know, so of course you're going to be more hypersensitive on like other things.
Yeah, definitely. But what I tend to do, and again, it's just me taking ownership of that responsibility and being aware that, you know, it's actually pretty awkward. So my general response is, oh, look, please don't pat her. She's actually working. And then I tend to say, I'm sorry, they should make these dogs ugly, so you don't want to pat them, shouldn't they? And that usually evokes a bit of a giggle, and people go, oh, and it kind of helps to relieve the tension a little bit, the embarrassment a little bit, because I don't see the point in snapping and snarling at people and going, don't touch my dog, it's a guide dog, can't you see, it's a guide dog. That's just not, I just think, that's just going to have negative whatever the word is, you know.
Repercussions.
Yeah.
It's inviting and inciting a negative behaviour.
Exactly. And
when people are just ignorant.
Exactly, Andrew, 100%. And that's the thing, and that's where I had to be, you know, for me, myself, I thought, you know, I'm going to take this dog on. People are going to want it. They're going to be curious. They're going to do this, they're going to do that. Can I cope with that? Yes, I can, because I think it's a great opportunity. I love to talk. I love to talk about what these dogs do and to bust some of these myths, you know. Like one thing that I do get asked quite a bit, she wants to jump up on the couch.
Yeah, go on. She's allowed.
Really?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, come on then. Up again. Come on, up. There we go.
Nah, she's in.
Is she in shot now?
She's in shot now.
Come on, hop down. Come on, hop down. Now, don't bump the microphone. Oh, she's going to curl up, I think. Yeah, I've got too much shit on the seat, haven't I? Sorry.
Go on, sit down.
Sit down. People don't want to see your bum. There we go. There you go.
Nice.
Okay. Where were we?
Ignorant people.
Yeah.
Like I think, and that's what I mean by, like, with your public speaking, you not being able to see you're at an advantage, because a lot of people will rely on the visual aspect of things.
Yep.
You know, and it's so I've been a photographer for 12 years.
Ah, yes, very visual.
It's very visual, right? And, you know, like, I've worked with some amazing people.
Microphone.
And I've also been, I guess, subject to the way that I look as well, you know, throughout my entire life. You know, being more Asian out of my two other siblings, being 6'2", you know, now, but 6 foot out of a really young age, living in Perth and having racism thrown in my face when I, you know, had no idea why, like, I was being subjected to that type of, you know, behaviour. Going through my parents' divorce, like all this type of stuff, right? At a really young age, and not really knowing where I fit in. And then finding creativity in photography, like, late, but like absolutely loving it, and, you know, wanting to give back to the strong women, you know, that I've had in my life, like my sister and my mum. And, like, yeah, so that's where my boudoir photography kind of the purpose of that kind of comes in.
Mm.
And, it's just people will interpret what they see their own way. And that's okay. Like, they're just, at the end of the day, they're just ignorant. Like, I'll let you think what you want to think because I know what I'm doing.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
I'm not sleeping with all these girls. Like, why would I do that? Because that's bad for branding, and like people talk, which means I wouldn't be able to work with all these amazing women.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that respect thing, isn't it? And I guess, that visual thing, getting back to, that's a good segue, because one of the things that I often get asked about her is, oh gosh, she looks so sad. She looks so, is she okay? And I think there's a misconception out there, Andrew, that these dogs have a sad and lonely, hard life.
Yeah.
Because, they're a working dog. And particularly when you say to people, don't pat them, please don't pat my dog, they automatically think, oh, the poor dog, it's never allowed to be patted. And most guide dogs, not all of them, there are some that I know that, they'll wag their tail. My colleague Erin and her dog Jet's tail is constantly wagging. He's just like, hey, happy chappy.
Yeah.
Whereas her, she's extremely focused. When she's in harness, she's like, down. Okay, she's like that Kelpie working dog, heads down. What am I doing? Okay, let's go, go, really focused. But as soon as the harness comes, look, I took the harness off and look at her now. You know, she has a good life. Yeah. And that's something that, I even have a little 10-second video on my phone when people pull me up sometimes at, the coffee shop and go, oh my God, your dog. And you can hear it in their voice. They're going, oh, that poor dog. I've had puppy raisers tell me that they've had, puppy raisers that look after these dogs in their first 12 months. People come up to them and go, oh, I hope the dog fails as a guide dog because that's a horrible life for a dog.
What?
I know.
Why?
That misconception's out there, Andrew. I don't know why.
Oh,
that it is. It's there.
Yeah. Again, it's this visual aspect to it, right?
Yeah.
And
but this 10-second video I have of her is her being a total lunatic. Like, she's running, she's doing zoomies, she's in the car with her head hanging out the window. And it's like, look, same dog. That's her. And you see people go, oh, really? And look at the video and look at the dog and go, yeah, it's her. Trust me, it is. And me particularly, given my background, my nursing background, my animal welfare background, I know how important it is to give her that balance. She has her playtime, she has her downtime, because I want her to be happy in her working life as long as possible, as long as she is physically and mentally able to. But by the same token, I'm also respectful that when it comes time for her to retire, I need to let her retire. I need to do the right thing by her.
So what's the age that she would retire?
Yeah, and that's people are always curious about that, and it's very much dependent on the dog, the type of work they've been doing. But she's just turned 8. She was 8 in March, and from the age of 8, that's when we start to really look at the dogs and the team. When I talk about the team, I mean the two of us together, because that's when naturally dogs are starting to wind down a little bit in their age. And it's like the R word. We don't like to say the R word, but and it's like, what happens to them after they retire. But getting back to the watching them, and so we get, as a guide dog team, we are assessed every 12 months, just routinely. Like the trainers will come along and go, okay, how's it all going? Yep.
Right.
But if we have any issues at all, anything, we're straight onto our trainers, and our trainers are like, yep, sure. And that's 24/7. Anything happens like that. And particularly, if something's starting to happen, particularly early on, like when you're first establishing your relationship, these dogs will push the boundaries. They really will. And you're a bit like, oh, okay, is this normal? Is this not normal? Get onto your trainer. Your trainer will come out and sort it out, and you work through it together.
What's an example of them pushing the boundaries?
I'll give you a really good example of her. And they're young dogs. Like when they start working, they're anywhere from 18 months to 2 years of age once they start in a partnership. In my case, she was 20 months. So she was like an advanced reader, she wanted to work. But, yeah, it's how long have we got? So,
how long's a piece of string?
yeah, exactly. So this is a great story though, and it really encapsulates what happened. So when we train with our guide dogs, we go we live on campus, so it's it used to be 2 weeks, I think. Yeah, like you go Monday to Friday, you go home on the weekend, the dog stays in the kennel, and then you learn how to drive your guide dog basically.
Yeah.
And so about 3 to 4 weeks, so you have that on campus, and then from home, the trainer will come to you every day, and you do your normal routes, like you hop on the train and go to work, you go down to the shops, whatever, and they'll help you learn those routes, and then they'll teach you how to learn new routes yourself, things like that. So it's quite intensive.
Yeah.
And they kind of say, look, at some point the dog will push the boundaries, and you're like, yeah, whatever, yep, okay. And for some dogs it's quite early, and other dogs it mightn't be until a year or 18 months after they've been working together they might do something, and you go, what's going on here? In her case, it was about 6 weeks into our partnership. And when I was first going down the track of, okay, guide dog mobility, we're going to do it. For me, I was also aware that it wasn't just me; it's my family as well. So my husband and I live together. His mother lives with us as well. My parents are going to be impacted by this. Blah blah blah. The whole range of things,
Yeah.
But in particular, with my husband, you met him out there before.
Yeah.
I call him Dr. Doolittle. And the reason for that is if he comes in here,
animals?
your cats will be sitting on his lap. I can almost guarantee it. He is that type of bloke. We have wild birds that fly out of the sky and almost sit on his shoulder, for goodness sake.
Wow.
It's ridiculous. It's totally ridiculous. We were aware that if I was going down this track with a guide dog, we know how important it is for the handler to develop and establish that bond with the guide dog.
Rather than him.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. So it was like,
stay away, husband.
yes, stay away. You have to stay away. How are we going to manage this? Can we do this as a family?
Oh.
And he was like, oh, yeah, look, I know how important it is, and it's going to be great for you. Yeah, I can do it. I'm sure I can do it. And it was like, okay, here we go.
Did he feel left out?
Wow, this is the other thing. Yes. And it's the other thing too, Andrew, because before her, whenever we go walking somewhere, he'd be on my left. We hold hands. Like, we've been holding hands for 31 years. And people think, oh, isn't that cute? They're cute. They've been together 30 years and they're still holding hands. What it is, he's actually guiding me with hand signals.
Yeah.
And people aren't aware of that. She's come into our lives, and it's like, I don't need him there anymore.
No.
So it's like, okay, dog walks on my left. You used to walk on my left. So he had to learn to walk on my right when we go out anywhere to start with.
No.
That's a whole raft of things. And then there was the dog thing. Like he can't engage with this dog. He can't. It's really important. Like, you can't feed it. The food has to come from me. Everything has to come from me. I have to be this dog's world.
Yeah.
So it was a lot, for us as a partnership. But he's like, no, we need to do this, Melaine. It's going to be a good thing. It's going to be good. It's going to be good. Okay, fine, no worries. Anyway, so we go and do it.
It's so good that he was just so supportive.
Oh, so hard for him. I know it was hard for him.
It's fucking annoying.
Oh.
Like, where do I get a relationship like that?
Anyway.
Fuck you guys.
Anyway, so come home and everything's good, and we go off, and I'm back at work. I'm doing my normal off to work. Come home in the evenings, and the routine is, like I watch the news, and then I go and make dinner. Now Richard had hurt his back, so he was lying. He wasn't on the couch. He had a mattress on the floor, so he was lying on the floor, watching TV. And this was about 2 weeks after we finished our training, and so I'm getting dinner prepared, and I hear this, Mel. I'm like, what? He's going, come and get your dog. I'm like, what do you mean, come and get my dog? And he's there going, she's licking my ear.
Oh.
He wouldn't even engage with her to push her away.
Oh.
He was like, oh, I can't.
I'll admit something. She was licking me before.
Oh, was she?
Yeah, she was.
But I mean, how amazing is that? But you know what I mean? She was still drawn to him even though he was doing nothing.
Yeah.
So about 4 weeks after that little incident, we sorted that out and that was fine. We head out to work in the morning. So I would leave the house first. And so it was like, okay, get up, I give her a brekkie, you know, we get ready for work, we walk out the door, very easy walk, you know, we go left, we go right, we cross the road, blah, blah, blah. Sweet as, we walk to the train station, that's all good. Anyways, one morning we walk out the door, everything's good, she turns left, she turns right, we cross over the road and we start on the long, dead straight run to the station.
Yeah.
She slows down. I'm like, what's going on here? And she comes to a complete stop. I'm like, why are you stopping? Okay, there must be something. There must be an obstruction around. What's around? Oh, there's nothing around. She drops on the ground, puts her head down like this, not looking at me, totally like stopped. That's it. Not going anywhere. And I'm like, what the hell's happened? What's wrong? What's wrong? What's going on? Is something you heard or you saw? What's happening? Tugging on the lead. Come on, let's go. Nothing. She's just pushing her head even further in. I'm going, what's happened? And I'm sitting on the ground. I'm crying. I've broken my guide dog. I've only had her 6 weeks and I've broken her. And eventually, unbeknownst to me, while I'm sitting on the footpath and she's sitting on the grass, she's wriggling herself around. And then on about the 4th time of pulling her up, she's like, oh, okay. And she gets up and we start moving. And I'm like, oh, thank God we're moving.
Yeah.
But then I realised we're moving back home. We weren't going to the station. She was taking me back home. And I'm like, what's going on? And so anyway, so I'm in tears and I get to the door and I've got my key in the door and Richard opens it and goes, he's not a morning person, by the way.
Right.
He goes, what's going on? Then she stopped. And he goes, what do you mean she stopped? And she hit the deck like there and then in the hallway. And I said, she did that. That's what she did to me. She's not going. She's broken.
Yeah.
And he's going, how did you break her? I said, I don't know. I've got to get to work. And he's like, oh, for God's sake, come on, get in the car. I'll take you down to the station. And I'm like, okay. And we get in the car and we're both sitting there and he's going, is it really? You're not just being a drama? No, I'm not. Anyway, we stopped just before the station and he goes, oh, well, let's just hop out and see what happens. So we hop out. She literally ran back to the car, like and tried to climb into his lap. And I'm like, oh, far out. What's going on? And we were just dead silent.
So it was him again?
And, well, we didn't know that at the time.
Yeah.
And so we get, and I go, I've got to go to work. I've got to get to work. And it's got, okay, we'll get to the station and we'll try again. So got out the door of the station. She's like, sure, no worries. Okay, where are we going? Down the ramp, up the ramp, onto the platform. Nothing had happened. It was like this flip had been switched. And in retrospect, what she'd pushed her boundaries because she'd done it on a dead straight flat bit of road. It's like, no, this is boring. When we got to the station, she's like, oh, I've got to work. I've got to go up. I've got to go down. I've got to go around. I've got to do this. I've got to get up.
Variability of what she needs to do.
Exactly. But I get to work and I'm like, oh my God, what happened? And, and I rang the trainer straight away and I said, oh my God, I've broken her. This is what's happening. He said, calm down, Melanie, what's happened? And I told him everything and he went, oh. And I said, Aaron, what do you mean? Oh. He said, Richard. And I said, what do you mean, Richard? I said, it's been really good. He hasn't been engaging. He said, I thought that might happen. He said, I believe he hasn't been engaging, but she's a smart dog and she knows that he's Mr. Fun. And I'm like, how does she know? And he said, look, she's a super smart dog.
Yeah.
The fact that she's even tested her boundaries this early is an indication of, what she's like.
Yeah.
She knows that home is fun, home is great, that's where the food is, it's all this sort of stuff. So there's a couple of strategies that he gave me. And he said, now, what you're going to have to do tomorrow morning when you leave, he said, number one, don't feed her before you go. Feed her when you get to work. I'm like, oh, yeah, that's easy. I can do that. Yep, that makes sense. Okay, she hasn't had a brekkie. She knows it must be coming. Let's keep going. And then eventually she'll know that when we get to work, she gets her brekkie. I said, oh, that's great. Yeah, I can work with that. Yeah. So that makes sense. Yep, I can do that. And then he said, now the other thing you're going to have to do, Rich is going to have to leave the house before you in the mornings. And I went, what? I said, good luck with that. I said, you can tell him that, Aaron. I'm not telling him he's got to get up and go and leave
Richard,
you
got to get up, buddy.
And I said, what? And he said, yeah, because
just get in the car and do a lap and come back.
Well, So
Is that what he did?
yes,
Ah!
but the thing was, so yes, Aaron did tell him, and he's like, all right, okay. And so we get up the next morning, and he's like, really? I've got, and he's like got his dressing gown and his moccasins on, and he goes to go out to the car and said, you got to put some shoes on. He goes, what do you mean? He said, well, she knows that your moccasins, you're not going to go out in them. You have to put some shoes on.
You got to make it look realistic.
Exactly.
None of this fucking pretending to go outside
Exactly.
when she knows you're coming back.
Exactly. So he's huffing and puffing and he gets dressed and he gets in and he drives a V8. So it's vroom, 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 vroom. I'm gone, you know.
Yeah.
And she's standing there in the hallway going, ooh, okay. Anyway, so that was fine. So we harness her up, we get out the door and everything's good. And he had completely gone, like he was around the corner where he was, and that was fine.
So does he still get up before you?
No, there's more to the story. Okay, so that was fine. And we thought this is probably going to have to happen for about a week or so. Oh, God, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, later the day before, like I'd rung the trainer in the morning, this was happening, and then later that day he said, now, Melanie, he rang me back and said, look, I've actually got a trainer who's going to be in the area tomorrow morning. She's got something called, now she's just going to observe you tomorrow morning. And if you get into trouble, if it happens again, you can't get her going, she will just intervene and away you'll go. Anyway, and I'm like, oh, great. I've never met this trainer before. I'm like, okay, fine, Anyway, so we get out the door and Richard's roared off. And so the trainer would have seen all this. And anyway, we walk off and she's working beautiful. I'm like, oh, thank God, it's worked. It's worked. And then we got just past where she'd done the day before the drop and she starts to drag her feet. And she did it again. So I did all these strategies, he told me to, come on, Dessi, let's go, up, let's go, blah, blah, blah. Nothing was working. Then all of a sudden, this woman jumps out of the bushes. Yeah. Hey, I'm Marita. Let's go. Let's go. And of course, Dessi's like, what the fuck? What? And she's hopped up and we're walking along and she's going, yeah, hi, I'm Marita. Aaron told me what's happening and I've just seen what's happened. I saw Richard leave and I saw this and you're doing everything right, but she's just testing you while we're walking along. And then we got about 50 metres and she starts to slow down again and she's like, oh, I'm on to you two. I know what's going on here.
Yeah.
But then,
hang on. Larry, buddy, get moving. Hang on a second. Richard's here. Hey, Richard. There's a chair just there for you to sit down. I'll just sort this cat out.
I told you the cats would be there. So that was the situation, but we worked through it, But yeah, that was one of the things, these dogs, they do bond with their handlers.
Yeah.
But we need to be mindful of other people in the family as well.
It is so interesting though that once you kind of like identified it, then the additional trainers could like come and give you strategies.
100%.
I think back to when I had dogs with my ex-wife. Like you go to like puppy school, and it is literally you're not teaching the dog, you're teaching the person.
100%.
The behaviour or what to look out for and how to do things
Yep.
to try to get the best out of your pet or whatever.
That's it. 100%, 100%. So that's the thing. And the other myth that, well, not really a myth, but it's more an etiquette. I guess it's petiquette, is other people with their pet dogs when you're with a working guide dog.
Yeah.
Your pet dog doesn't need to say hello to the working guide dog. Please just leave it alone. Give it space. And those retractable leads, they should be banned. They are a nightmare, It's just got a little fluffy come over in front of her, It's just, it's really, that's a real frustration, So,
Again, that's just an education piece well, right?
It is, yeah.
That even that gives more of a validation as to why you need to do more PR work for Guide Dogs Victoria.
Yes, well, International Guide Dog Day is today, Wednesday, yes.
So what's involved like in celebrating that day?
lots of different people do lots of different things, and Guide Dogs Victoria aren't doing an event as such. We did last year. We had an event, but hopefully there'll be lots of awareness sort of all over the country and all over the world. It is International Guide Dog Day, but it's just. I mean, the most important thing I think is talk to the handler.
Yeah,
they're the ones with the voices, and they're the ones that want to talk to you. So it's
So stop putting harnesses on your dogs.
Oh yeah. Well,
don't engage in a working dog. Talk to the human, not the dog. Anything else?
Yeah. Don't let your Fluffy come and say hello to it.
Don't let your Fluffy come and say hello. Yeah.
Yeah, but and these dogs do have a good life. They don't have a sad life. It really is. They're bred for this. And the other thing too is the thing I love about particularly Guide Dogs Victoria is that these dogs tell us if they want a guide or not. We never push them into the role. And there's so many other pathways for our dogs. We have ambassador dogs. We have even got a fabulous therapy dog program because, some of these, they're bred, there's a lot of work goes into breeding these dogs so that they'll potentially will want to work as a guide dog. But when push comes to shove, they may not want to. They may just want to be someone's lap dog. They don't have the drive to guide. But and it's the thing I love about guide dogs. There's so many other pathways. These dogs are always, they never end up.
I guess that in itself is a myth, right? Because there's this misconception that once the dog's inducted in, like that's it. There's no other pathway. But what you're saying is that the dog actually tells you that it wants to work and that it wants that particular role.
Exactly. And there are some dogs that, but we've got a dog at the moment that's in our court system, Poppy, and she showed remarkable ability to connect with people that were distressed. And so she now sits in the court system with victims of domestic violence and children.
Yeah.
And she just showed us early on that was where her strengths were.
Yeah.
So, we've placed her in that role. And, getting back to the whole retirement thing as well too, it's like, these dogs, there's so many options with retirement. I mean, Richard and I are very fortunate that we have capacity to keep her when she retires. And there was a bit of contention as to when I'm a bit of an overthinker, as you've worked out, but Richard and I have talked about her retiring, and initially I said, you know what, when she retires, I think I'm just going to go back to using the cane because I want to be able to give her the care and everything she needs in her retirement, And there was silence from Richard for a while, and I was like, and I'm like, what's wrong?
Cane.
Yeah, and I said, what's wrong? And he said, Melanie, I don't really like that other Melanie very much. You have to get another dog.
I don't like that Melanie.
It wasn't really those words, but
hang on. Is it because the cane is in your left hand or the right hand, and he wants the left hand?
I don't know, but I think it's more that the impact the dog had on me as a person and where I am now. Yeah,
because he's gotten used to you working with Desi, and you being the person that you are with her.
Yeah.
I can understand that.
Yeah. So I probably will get another dog. But she will stay with us. But in other cases, there may be someone who lives on their own.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't be fair to leave a retired dog at home on their own while they're out and about. So there may be friends or family that will take a retired dog. But then we also have other people that just members of the public who are prepared to take on a retired guide dog and let them see out their days in a family home. So,
So that's another, I guess, did I know it? Did I not know it? I'm not sure. But, that's another option, right, for, people who want to take on retired guide dogs.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
Because it's about giving them a quality of life as well, right?
Exactly. And they deserve it, Andrew. They really do. It's,
So what's next on your PR journey?
I have a few things, that obviously I'm still working at Guide Dogs Victoria, still
Yeah.
loving that. So I do speak as a client speaker.
Yeah.
I also have a little talk that, given my veterinary background, and this is the one that I did for the graduating vet students at Melbourne Uni. I've done it for some vet nurse classes as well, and it's just around improving the veterinary experience for
Yeah.
guide dogs and their handlers, just general tips and tricks on, how to engage or not engage, with a guide dog and their handler.
Yeah.
And potentially I'm thinking that talk could even go into other service industries as well, potentially too. So that potentially is something.
I think it totally could go into other industries. Like you
Yeah.
mentioned before about guide dogs who don't necessarily, dogs that don't necessarily want to choose to be guide dogs, but can be other like therapy dogs. You know, like there's obviously, I think, an opportunity for increased awareness around that as well.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah, definitely. And there is a little bit of an issue out there at the moment, with what we call fake service dogs. So that's probably a whole other topic that we can talk about. But the dogs having the proper accreditation to do the work that they do is critical, and having that recognised and respected is something that I think we still need to do quite a bit of work on in that space as well. So yeah.
Is the accreditation thing hard to get, like particularly here in Australia?
Yeah, and there's a lot of misunderstanding. There's nothing clear cut, which I think is the problem.
There's never anything clear cut.
Yeah, which makes it really hard because we have seen people in public areas, with animals that they claim to be assistance dogs, and they're clearly not.
Yeah.
And it's a misuse of a protected term, which it's a real problem. And dogs that they appear to be behaving badly. They're not behaving badly. They're behaving in a way that's telling their people they don't want to be in this situation.
Yeah.
A dog that's barking and snapping, and they say, "Oh, I must be allowed to have this dog. It's my assistance dog," and it's clearly not.
And it's just a little chihuahua in a handbag.
Yeah,
That's the type of situation
yeah,
we're talking about,
exactly.
right?
And I mean, I have no doubt that yes, people and their animals. You mentioned it earlier, Andrew. Everyone, the connection that animals have with people.
Yeah.
But please respect that. These highly trained dogs are in this role, and a lot of work goes into it, so that they're not. You see them, but you don't hear them. You don't know they're there half the time, and then that's how it should be, because the focus should be on the person, not on the dog.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah,
that's exactly right.
Yeah.
Well, Melanie, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Pleasure.
Let me just take a quick selfie and now you mentioned you don't have Instagram.
Oh, I do, but I'm not very good at driving it.
How can people contact you to get more information?
Email. No, I do have.
Shall I put your email on the podcast? I'll have it come up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, done.
Yeah, absolutely. I do. Yeah, on Facebook.
Old school, man. We're going old school.
Old school. Yeah. But no, I do have a YouTube channel as well.
Yeah.
So, but I can send you all that stuff, and you can pop it on your show notes.
Yeah. Amazing.
Thank you.
Well, again, thank you so much for coming on. This is the first time I've had a dog on the podcast.
Your poor cats.
The cats are fine. Like the friendly cat, he's outside now because he wanted to attack. But the skittish one is just literally just sitting there going, what is going on? He's just like oblivious to the whole world, Maxie.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
That's so funny.
Very good.
Amazing. Thanks everyone for listening in. Hit subscribe, that notification bell, and I'll catch you guys all on the next one. See ya.